Hey folks, welcome to Atomic Game Theory, the show that uses conflict theory and math to study the tiny decisions that can make a big difference between winning and losing your favorite games. Today I want to focus on a game that is all about bribery, bluffing, and smuggling, Sheriff of Nottingham by Arcane Wonders. There aren't a lot of bribery games in the world, so I'm really excited to get into some serious analysis. Sheriff of Nottingham is a game where players are trying to get their goods to market. Some of those goods are completely legitimate, and some of them are contraband. Players decide what goods they're going to sell and secretly shove those cards in a little sealed envelope. Players then declare what they have in their shipment, but they can only declare one type of good and the amount of cards in the envelope. Of course, you can put whatever you want in the bag, and you can totally lie about it. Players take turns with the role of the sheriff, and the sheriff gets to decide whether or not they're going to search those little envelopes. The results are simple enough. If a sheriff catches a player selling undeclared goods, that player owes a penalty. So obviously, I don't want to be caught with contraband. On the other hand, if a sheriff opens a bag filled with legal goods, they owe a fine to the player. Both of us want the maximum amount of gold, which is easy to determine when we break it down into utility scores. While these will vary wildly with the kinds of goods we're bringing to market, we can make some simple assumptions. There are 4 kinds of legal goods, and if we look at their gold value on average, legal goods are worth 3 gold. And since you can ship from 1 to 5 goods at a time, a legal shipment is worth somewhere between 3 and 15 gold. If I have 3 of those goods, they ship for 9 gold. On the other hand, contraband goods are worth an average of 7 gold. If a sheriff searches a legal shipment, the goods all go to market, plus the sheriff owes the player a penalty listed on the legal cards, which is 2 golds per good. If a sheriff searches an illegal shipment, all the legal declared goods get through, but the undeclared ones are discarded, and the player owes the sheriff an amount of gold equal to the penalty on all those undeclared goods, and that quickly starts to add up. Let's compare 2 different but completely average shipments, one legal and one illegal. As usual in these matrices, each entry has my gold on the left and yours on the right. Even though it is not the most profitable strategy, the obvious and safe thing to do here is to only ship legal goods. If the sheriff decides to search, you've done nothing wrong and you even get rewarded. If all players adopt this strategy, it only penalizes the sheriff when they decide to search a shipment. Eventually, the sheriff will stop searching goods at all and will end up in the top left box forever, making this the most boring bluffing game ever made. Well then, how did it win Origin's Best Game of the Year in 2015? It's because it's not a bluffing game. Sheriff of Nottingham is a bribery game. I don't have a whole lot of experience with bribery, but one thing I know is that a bribe needs to be big enough to allow an infraction to pass, but not so big that I'd rather not break the law in the first place. What we need to do is come up with the kind of bribe that will convince the sheriff not to search my envelope, which is absolutely filled with contraband. This is going to take some work. First, is a bribe even possible? As you might expect, there are some players who will not be open to a bribe at all. No matter what I do, as long as they're the sheriff, if they think I have any contraband in there at all, they're going to search it, no questions asked. These are the legalists. Do not bribe these players. I might even find myself in a position where every player at the table is a legalist, and in that case, here's my advice. Pack up this game and put it away. Sheriff of Nottingham is the kind of game that's ripe for people who like coup and resistance and all the other bluffing games in the world, players who are ready to lie for the sake of a game. More often, I'm going to have a mix of those 2 types of players, so I need to figure out what the right kind of bribe is to make sure that they're up for a little bit of mischief. Here are the basic categories of bribes. A bribe up front is toughest on the seller because it requires me to basically tell the sheriff exactly what I'm shipping so that they think they're getting enough of a good deal. I can pay in gold, or I can pay with some of the market cards I've already shipped. Let's call it a 3 gold bribe. I've given the sheriff a reason to choose my best spot at the bottom left, but now they also benefit from taking the bribe and then searching. And the more I bribe, the more they gain by betraying me. I can also pay a bribe after delivery, and I'm free to promise some of the cards in my shipment instead of gold. But if I do that, I can lie. If I don't actually have those goods, I don't owe anything at all to the sheriff. Sad sheriff. Let's do it again. Call it a 3 gold bribe. Now the bribe only comes in when the sheriff doesn't search. But the risk of lying means that if a sheriff doesn't search, they may not get anything. A bigger bribe could help, but it could still scare them off. Or I could mix the 2 of these. I could bribe 3 gold before and then 3 more after. Notice the bottom 2 entries are exactly the same, because as long as you search, I'm not going to pay that second bribe. But if I can convince the sheriff that they're going to be getting something, they may play along. Or I could bribe the sheriff by promising a future favor. Of course, the game makes it very clear that you never have to follow through with that. This has the possibility of being the most beneficial option. If two players can ship anything they want without paying a bribe, they end up in the best position on the board. But what if I'm the sheriff and I let you through, and you betray me when it's my turn? This is especially worrisome in a game where the turns are non-sequential, like this one. How do I know that you are going to follow through? I have to have some mechanism to work this whole thing out, and in game theory we call it signaling. Signaling is a game theory mechanism for gaining trust. It starts with small steps and then you build and build and build up into bigger alliances. So I might start with trading for a small profit, and then if that goes through, then we might work it out so we get a bigger profit down the road. Sheriff of Nottingham is all about signaling. How can I convince people that I'm going to lie in the right way so that we can make the best deal possible? Because if I don't, I might as well just play the game legit because no one's ever going to trust me again. Think about this little atom next time you play Sheriff of Nottingham and see what happens. How can you gain someone's trust in the middle of a game about lying? What's the best kind of signal to use? How can I get the outcomes I want most? Now you're thinking like a game theorist. This has been your atomic look inside Sheriff of Nottingham. Thanks for watching.